Welcome back. Thanks again for joining us. Now, last week, an illegal strike at Eskom caused 1,000 people to lose their jobs. This despite apparent negotiations there. This morning, Cosatu's Central Executive Committee will meet in Johannesburg to decide the fate of its General Secretary, Zwelinzi Mavavi, and it's only a few months away from what is typically known as strike season. So joining us now to discuss a host of labor issues, as you've heard in that intro, is Irvin Jim. He is NUMSA's General Secretary. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning.
All right. Now, I want us to be very strategic with this. Let's start with Eskom. We'll come to the recent developments in just a moment. But the strike at Medupi and the subsequent dismissal of 1,000 workers there. You're the majority union at Medupi. We do understand. You've lamented the way that it was handled, and you've said, and I quote, you're going to flex your organizational muscle and collective power both at Medupi and Kusile. In light of the electricity challenges that we're facing at the moment as a country, what do you mean by that?
Well, we said that, but we remain optimistic that sanity will prevail, that Eskom, that has been run down by the board in taking a decision to collapse senior executives and suspend them, whose results have been bad for the country. Eskom have been relegated to a junk status by rating agencies. We don't necessarily applaud rating agencies. They are the people behind the neoliberal agenda that we have in this country. But it is unthinkable that you could have a situation where the country is facing load shedding. We have a situation where the board can act recklessly in the manner in which they did. They appoint Mr. Tsotsi to basically lead an inquiry, a person in our view who himself supposed to be investigated if there's any investigation, because all bad decisions that have been taken at Eskom, he was basically the captain of that particular ship. In relation to the issues that made workers to tool down, workers, they don't just tool down. Workers tool down on the basis that they have been experiencing unilateral action by management of both those contractors and Eskom, which is supposed to monitor, where basically demobilization, workers have been kicked out of Eskom because now they claim that those workers must go. In terms of the PLA agreement and in terms of Section 189, if you are contemplating to retrench workers, one of the things that you must do is to consult with the unions and with workers. That has not happened. Secondly, workers who are now being demobbed, they have got genuine expectation in that if they, as they have finished Unit 6 now that is coming to the grid, that has come to the grid, they were expecting that they will be paid bonuses. This is an agreement that was reached. And workers now are asking fundamental question. If we are being demobbed and our unions are not being consulted, what will happen when the construction has come to an end? What will happen to our bonuses? Which have led workers both in those two issues, including the fact that they are being forced to continue now to stay in hostels. There's two things. When all those workers who are skilled workers, who are artisans, when they arrive there, they basically ask that our expectation is that we must have a proper accommodation where our families can be able to visit us. Something strangely, Eskom said, listen, give us time, we will change this particular situation. But what they are witnessing now is workers who are being pushed out of proper accommodation, being pushed into those particular hostels that have flared up anger to workers to say, oh, this is a permanent arrangement that we will continue to stay under these conditions. And they didn't strike, they marched to hand over a memorandum, and Eskom decided to close the site.
So the situation at present is that it continues, and you, as you've said, hope that sanity will prevail. Talking about hoping that sanity will prevail, recent developments overnight, the press conference by Mr. Zwelinzi Mavavi, several things coming to the fore. He will not resign, he will not attend the CEC meeting, and he will mobilize rank and file to reclaim Cosatu. Your reaction?
Well, we think that the die is cast for him. You're speaking to a wrong person. That Central Executive Committee is a central committee of a group of individuals who are a clique that very factional. NUMSA was fired with 350,000 members. I made a presentation for 3 hours. They were not listening. Their minds were made. I'm absolutely convinced that they would have made their mind if Vavi is the fish that they've been trying to get rid of. And all what he did yesterday was to basically to tell workers that he is not going to subject himself to that kangaroo court, because these are people who are completely have no interest of workers. They have been firing workers across their own unions, expelling them for having different political views. And the unions, we know, their role and responsibility is to defend workers. There is a mission and an agenda to clean out, to hollow out Cosatu of its revolutionary content and all those who stand in the interest of worker control and to make sure that they champion struggles for the working class.
All right, we have discussed Eskom. We've spoken a bit about Zwelinzima Mavavi, as I alluded to in the intro. The third part of this interview is what about the workers? We have strike season looming just around the corner. The United Front has been set up. There were rumors abounding that there will be another Labour Federation, which Zwelinzima Mavavi was touted to be heading up, very closely linked to NUMSA. In all of this politics coming to the fray, at the end of the day, workers' interests, are they still at the forefront?
Well, I must say we are a growing organization as NUMSA. We're working with the 8 unions. We are all very clear that we must do everything that anybody do to defend the unity of workers. In other words, we are going to fight to maintain the unity of the federation. To this effect, we have actually filed papers in court to demand for a Cosatu Special National Congress. We're very clear, if all fail, that's when we will sit down and honestly look at the options. That's the mandate NUMSA have. That's the mandate, I guess, the rest of the affiliates of Cosatu who are working with us will discuss. Quite frankly, a possibility could be, after we've done everything, that we might have to consider to crystallize a new federation.
So at present, you are hoping that Vavi will succeed in mobilizing rank and file and take over Cosatu and bring you back?
I think it's not an opportunistic thing. It's about what workers across all Cosatu unions have resolved on as campaigns that must be pursued. Poverty, unemployment. We're in a country where about 26 million people have no plate of food. In fact, we're experiencing serious levels of deindustrialization. The country has become public enemy number 1 in terms of inequality. And I mean, we're seeing SOEs. All of them collapsing. There is a crisis at Eskom. There's no voice of the federation. I think the honorable thing that Vavi must do, correctly as he said so yesterday, is to basically take side with workers and to champion their struggles. Those who want to fire him in boardroom, they must fire him. He must continue with workers' struggle and mobilize them behind their workers' common program. I think that's a momentary issue currently.
A number of challenges are being faced by labor organizations, a lack of unity, mechanization is seeing possible unemployment of a large number of people. What is the way forward? Are unions still relevant?
Well, unions are very relevant. I think if you were to ask me, I would argue that there's just no better cause, like a cause of building organizations of the working class, not just for them to represent workers, but to speak on behalf of workers, but to advance concrete alternatives. Because capital is a very organized system. It hires the best managers to advance its interests. We must do the same, which is why as NUMSA, for instance, we have championed service charter, that we're retraining our own shop stewards, our own organizers, to be able to advance those particular alternatives and make sure that these organizations grow and workers must continue to control them.
Mr. Jim, thank you so much for your time. NUMSA General Secretary there, speaking to us on a wide range of labor-related issues. A quick ad break now. Morning Live continues after this. Stay with us.